everyone, and welcome to this training session on the In-House Lawyers Leadership YouTube channel. Today, I am going to talk to you about how to handle and give feedback effectively so that you feel empowered, inspired, and how you can make other people feel empowered and inspired through the art of giving feedback in a really, really healthy way. So, number one, I want to talk to you about what is feedback. What do you think feedback is? A lot of people who I work with initially, when they think of feedback, they think of feedback as someone else's view of how effective you are in your role, or what you need to do to change to be more effective in your role. Anybody else who thinks that that is what feedback is? Or do you have a different idea of feedback? Because here's the truth. Feedback has got very little to do with you. That element of the definition of feedback that I've just given you is a very, very small component part of what feedback is about. Because what I'm going to do now is explain to you what feedback actually is. I'm going to speak to you about the psychology of feedback and what it is and what it isn't. And I'm going to talk to you about the problems of thinking feedback is about you. First of all, what is feedback? Feedback, in truth, is someone else's view of how you should be doing your role, or someone else's view of what your role is and what your role is about. And all too often, as you probably know, is that someone else's understanding of your role is probably limited. And that would mean that they would come in with probably a different expectation of what your role is compared to what it actually should be. Specifically for in-house lawyers, a lot of organizations might view the in-house legal role as a service to the business, that lawyers are only capable of reviewing contracts and telling us what the risks are in contracts and helping us negotiate our deals to get fairer terms. And then on the other hand, you have different people in different boards that say that no, the legal team is the police of the organization, they're the social conscious of the organization, they manage the risk, they are the guardians of risk. And then you have other organizations that say, well, no, they're not the guardians of risk. The whole business is the guardians of risk. But what legal is a really solid function that sit with us at the front and help us shape risk strategy to help us mitigate risk throughout the operations of our organization. Now, none of those three things are right or wrong. They're just a perception of what people think that the in-house legal team should be, or what you should be as an in-house lawyer. So how is this relevant to feedback? You're probably wondering. Well, if someone thinks that your role is to provide a service to them, the way that they interact with you and their expectations of how you should be with them in your interactions will dictate what feedback they're going to give to you. So if your idea of your role and their idea of your role is different, you're going to get feedback which you're not going to agree with. And the only reason is because you're not on the same hymn sheet of about what your role is, or maybe how you should be interacting with them. I'm going to give you another example. I've had a client who had feedback that they basically went into a lot of detail, and it was too much detail, that they weren't high level thinking enough, that they weren't maybe strategic enough. And I had that from one person. So my client started feeling really, really stressed, and they said, well, I have other people that tell me they love that and they need that. So do I change myself wholesale? Do I, how do I handle this? So I do just to give you a bit of insight, I do disc profiling with clients, and disc profiling really helps clients understand their own specific motivators, their communication style, and their leadership style. And it also gives them insight into others as well. And what they learned going through that disc profile was that it wasn't the case that they needed to change who they were. They just needed to understand what that particular person's needs were because of the other person's individual communication style, and what the other person needed to hear so that they could understand the message, because the other person just processes information in a very different way. Now, once my client understood that, they understood that I only really need to change how I operate when dealing with that particular individual. So whenever I'm writing reports or I'm writing emails, or when I'm engaging with that particular person, that I make sure that I give a very high level bullet point information, big picture information. And I can also give the detail, but if they don't want to see it, that's absolutely fine. Because the danger here is whenever a lot of people receive feedback, they think that it's something to do with them, that there's something wrong. There's nothing wrong with you. Nothing wrong with you. You don't need to do anything different. You are perfect the way you are. However, as part of a leadership skill, is you just need to understand how other people operate. So this brings me into understanding why I'm talking about this on a leadership channel. Because when we think about feedback in those simplistic terms, as someone just telling me how they think I should be doing my job, that's quite disempowering. That's why you won't like feedback. That's why you will not seek it out. That's why you will probably end up feeling like you can't trust anyone. However, from a leadership mindset, if you see feedback as an opportunity to understand that other individual, understand how you need to interact with that person differently, you're going to start building stronger stakeholder relationships. And even if it's with your boss or someone in your team, you start building stronger relationships. And once you have stronger relationships and understanding of other people, you can operate more effectively. When you realize feedback is not about you, it's about how you are all working together. It's about giving you an opportunity to understand specific individuals. And once you have that understanding, you can become a little bit more curious about what's really going on for them. And once you have that understanding for you as an individual and a leader, and maybe even a legal department, you then make a decision on what is your role with this person, what is your role with this team, is what they're asking for something that you should actually be doing. Because if it's not, then there is an expectations issue. And that's where the feedback and those conversations can really help draw out what the real issues are. Because again, the feedback is not about you. It's about giving you an opportunity to understand other people differently and understand how to work with them more effectively so that you can draw out your value even more. So if you get feedback and you think, well, should I or should I not be doing this? Or Do I need to change who I am? The answer is first of all, no, you shouldn't change who you are. You probably just need to change or make a tweak to how you're engaging with that particular individual. Now, what I'm going to do is share with you a trick so that whenever it comes to feedback, it doesn't feel like feedback. The trick is to get ahead of it. So rather than waiting to get feedback uninvited, where you will be a little bit surprised, and which will possibly set you back a little bit, get ahead of it. What I mean by getting ahead of it is when you start your new job, or this week, if you want to start afresh, the trick is write out who your stakeholders are, write out how often you should be speaking to these people to understand them, not to get feedback, to understand them, and go in and lean in and ask them what they need. Now, this isn't for you to come back and do everything and make all the changes that they're asking for. This is to come back and assess whether your stakeholders actually understand your role as an in-house lawyer or as an in-house legal team. And if they do, to what extent can you make changes so that you're driving value into the business? Because a lot of the times, whenever you're having those conversations with your stakeholders and you're asking the right questions to understand their challenges, a legal function can actually help from a process and a systems and a people perspective to enhance how you work with them, which will actually help them to deliver strategy. And this is where the legal function and you actually start to make a big impact. And this is where you start to move into leadership. So, as a summary, how to handle feedback. Number one, it's not feedback about you. It's an opportunity to understand what's going on for the other person. It's also an opportunity for you to understand where there might be misinterpretations or misunderstanding between that person or their department and the in-house legal role, which gives you a real opportunity to go out and have the right conversations to explain to them what your role is and what your role isn't, to set boundaries. I know that's an issue for in-house lawyers. And the next one is to set up a consistent meeting, get ahead of it, understand what's going on with them, take that back to your team, take that within and look at and say, okay, what is the real issue here? Because the real issue isn't a personal one, it's going to be bigger than that or deeper than that. And that's what feedback lets you do. So if you find this video helpful in any way, please give us a little comment, like and share with other people who you think would benefit from it. Separately, if you feel that you need a little bit more support on giving feedback, or that you've recently received feedback that you don't know how to handle, please do not hesitate to book a discovery call in the link below in the comments. And I bid you adieu. Have a great day. And remember that leadership starts in here. Good luck. Bye-bye.